SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Runners, are you ready? The 15th annual Viking Half Marathon, 10K and 5K will take to the streets on March 28th in Greenwood. Registered now at VikingHalfMarathon.com. Paid for by the Greenwood Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
Welcome back there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
What's going on? Nice weather out there you brought back for us, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a bigger fan of the cold weather, but I won't complain when it's in the 70s and 80s.
You know, it's just teasing us on what's to come in the summer when the heat sets in. Oh, gosh, getting ready for that. We're all settled in here in the Element Wealth Studio, buckled up, ready to go. We've got Dr. Joe Childs, Dean of the College of Business and Aviation at Delta State University. He'll talk about some new money they got for an expansion of the aviation program, a unique program there at Delta State. Excited about this. Mark Vargas, a member of the Iraq Task Force, part of the Office of the Secretary of War for the years 2007 and 2010. So what's going on right now is no stranger to him, and he'll provide his assessment of the current war in Iraq. And then the legislature, we got representative war from the war in Iran. Pardon me. I just read that from my notes and I misspoke. He, of course, was part of the efforts in the war of Iraq, part of the task force back then. So I think that's what happened. It got copied there. My apologies. The war in Iran, yes. So we'll ask him to perhaps draw some comparisons of those two conflicts, how this one looks compared to that one, in his overall insight, which I expect he has much. Looking forward to that. Roberson. He's a member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. He's coming on at 12:05. He'll be right here in the Element Wealth Studio. Rhino, I know you've probably been keeping up with it a little bit, even in your absence, but they might as well go home. They ain't got a lot to do down there in the legislature. I checked this out yesterday using our tool, our State Watch tool. I think I got this right when I ran the query. We've passed 10 bills, totally passed, enacted into law this year to this point. That's what the system said. And I ran it for the 2025 regular session to this point in the session. And it popped out 253, which had passed to this point. So 10 versus 253. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of camaraderie going on between the two houses. I did attend the gaming and tourism legislative reception last evening at the South in downtown Jackson, and well attended as it always is. A lot of them legislators and lobbyists and so forth, and many folks that we know from the show representing the various tourism and departments and organizations across the state. Really cool. Enjoyed that. But I asked several of them, Rhino, we having fun yet? And then I just got the old eye roll. Gosh. Talked to the lieutenant governor a bit. We had Daniel Sparks on yesterday, the senator from Northeast Mississippi. And he did not mince any words about the fact that all the bills that he was sponsoring related to the Public Employees Retirement System program, they went down in flames over there in the House. The House didn't even have the State Affairs, right? Representative Hank Zuber chairs that. Didn't even have a committee meeting on deadline day to take up those bills. So I really can't tell you what's going on. All I know is that the best way to describe it is not much down there at the Capitol. And then you think about, Rhino, they could always suspend the rules, right, to extend the deadline and revive those bills that right now have at least died on the calendar. But that requires the old supermajority numbers in both chambers to do so. And the Republicans don't have that anymore in the Senate. Remember, special elections and so forth, due to redistricting, changed the balance in the Senate. So that just gives rise to all sorts of other questions about where do we go from here. But we're going to talk to Representative Rob Roberson at 12:05 and get his take on all of the tumult down there in Jackson. We talked earlier about, I believe it was this week, this announcement, another data center coming to the Magnolia State, this time in Clinton, Mississippi, an existing building they will be occupying. It turns out it is Amazon. That was just revealed earlier this morning, that it's making a $750 million investment there in Hinds County in Clinton, Mississippi. It's a big old deal for Clinton, for Hinds County, and for the state of Mississippi. So there was some records that quit claim deeds that are public records available that have been obtained, and it appears that this 99-acre site in Clinton was transferred to Amazon on February the 13th. That's on the industrial park in Clinton, the former home of Milwaukee Tool Company, before that Packard Electric. So the agreement has to be signed off on by the Mississippi Development Authority. Not clear if that's happened yet at this point. This is the fourth major investment made by Amazon in the metro area when you consider the two sites in Madison County, and then the recent announcement earlier this year of the investment in Warren County, and then this one here in Hinds County. So, meanwhile, the markets, they are not happy today, selling off. And so just think about this. As the price of oil rises, the markets decline, and vice versa typically. So what we're witnessing right now, no surprise, is the price of oil now up around $75 a barrel. That's about $10 more a barrel than it was before the conflict was launched with Iran. So traders don't like that, fear that. Now, the president has ordered American warships into the Strait of Hormuz to escort tankers as needed. And is also, one of the problems is you can't get insurance. And he's taking some action to resolve that problem as well. So hopefully that will return operations to A-OK, all normal in the region, to keep the flow of oil going, because I get worried about how this affects the midterms, the political ramifications. People not paying attention, don't care. They just know they're paying more at the pump for gas. And if that's still the case when they get ready to go cast their ballot, it could be problematic for Republicans and the president. So I'm hoping not. Meanwhile, we covered yesterday, Rhino, the big primary elections in Texas on the Democrat and Republican side, the president yesterday announced he's going to endorse one of the Republican candidates that advanced to the runoff. That would be the incumbent Senator John Cornyn. His challenger, current Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Wesley Hunt also was in the race. He's a representative in the U.S. House from Texas. He failed to advance to a runoff. So we got those two candidates. The president says, I'm going to endorse one and ask the other to exit the race. And his rationale for that is concern about the Democrat opponent. Get focused on that right now, right? Clear the boards, because the runoff would be in May. And then what that means is that these two Republican candidates are going to spend a bunch of money and all their cycles attacking each other and campaigning against each other rather than the ultimate opponent in the general election coming from the Democrat side, which has been determined. No runoff on the Democrat side, only had two candidates. So James Tallarico, a dangerous candidate. We got some sound we'll play about that guy, from that guy later on in the program. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. Please stay with us.
America's team.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. This guy, Tallarico, he now says that Jesus was a radical feminist. Probably pro-choice. That's what he said. Unbelievable that this guy is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the upcoming general election. More and more of his radical views are being exposed. They really weren't in the primary because, let's face it, his primary opponent shared the same views. So now he will get exposed for the nutcase that he is. Oh, my gosh. He's preaching in his church all kinds of crazy stuff. In the seminary presently, studying to be a Presbyterian minister. Just unbelievable, the sort of stuff that he is saying and is recorded, on record, as having said. It just blows the mind that he could consider himself a Christian and be pursuing the ministry. I can't comprehend it, honestly. But the turnout is something that a lot of folks are concerned about on the Republican side, because the turnout was much better for the Democrats. More Democrats voted in the Texas primary than Republicans. Highest ever, 2.3 million. They average about 980,000. That really is incredible and something that Republicans certainly should take note of. So they are energized, are the Democrats, in the Lone Star State. They're smelling blood in the water, and they're going to get out and vote. And this is certainly a message to Republicans that I hope they heed and take action on. So this was the highest turnout ever in a primary in the state of Texas. The president again says he's going to endorse one of the Republican candidates and ask the other to drop out of the race because, as he says, quote, we must win in November. And so he's wanting to get the general election established so that the Republican candidate can focus on their ultimate general election opponent, and that's this nutcase, James Tallarico, who loves to quote the Bible, but man, he has some twisted interpretations of Scripture that I just can't quite fathom. But he is moving forward. So we shall see where all that goes. Here in the state, our revenue, by the way, we just got the report from the Legislative Budget Office, fell below estimates for the month of February. However, year-to-date revenues remain slightly above estimates at this point in the fiscal year. We got 4 months remaining. Our fiscal year, of course, ends June 30th. So we're just under $100 million above sine die estimates for the entire year. That's about 2.14%. So the collections in February came in about $65 million, or 13% and change below estimates. Year to date, we're still in good shape. Got to also keep in mind that the income tax rate, we only have one rate now in the state of Mississippi. That's on all taxable income above $10,000. That rate was reduced from effective January 1 from 4.4% in 2025 to 4% in 2026. So 401k balances in the meantime hit a record high in 2025. That's good news. That's because, of course, the market had a banner year. However, hardship withdrawals, they are also on the rise. People are tapping into the 401k plans to take care of emergency type issues and just needs around the household. This is for the 6th straight year. You got more Americans, an increase this year over the prior year, that are raiding their retirement accounts. But they did finish the year with more money, and that could be the reason. They just feel a little more optimistic about the gains in those accounts, and they're okay with taking that money out, paying a penalty, small penalty, and of course it's subject to income tax. Withdrawals are out of traditional 401k plans. So that I just thought that was interesting. Meanwhile, Americans, of course, are filing their tax returns, and they're enjoying the refunds. They're up about 10% this year over last year. That primarily the result of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So that's good news there, and something that hopefully will be providing some positive momentum and tailwinds for Republicans as they head into the midterms. You got more money in your account, more money in your pocket. Hopefully you're remembering that when you cast that ballot. It's also true that more Americans struggled with debt over the past year. And polls of just random polls from the various financial media show that most Americans intend to pay debt down with the larger refunds they are receiving this year, paying on their debt. The average tax refund, again, for this year is expected to be about $750 higher than the prior year. But many consumers say they're going to use those additional refunds, or all of their refund, to help pay down their rising debt. And, of course, interest rates on that debt, they've also risen in the last couple of years. And so it's just more expensive to maintain and service that debt. The number of consumers who missed their payments for 30 to 59 days in that category increased across all debt types. Wow. And that the number of households, that are 1 to 2 months behind on their mortgages increased by 31% from January 25 to January 26. That according to Vantage Score. That's surprising. That's a big jump in being delinquent on your mortgage. Really surprised at that. Little other business news. Morgan Stanley announced yesterday they're laying off 2,500 employees across all divisions. Now, that's about 3% of their workforce. It's a big company, and they got a lot of people. But 2,500 employees are getting the pink slip at Morgan Stanley. Salesforce cut roughly 4,000 customer support roles last year because of AI advancements. Pinterest says it's laying off 15% of its workforce. That is consistent with their plan to focus more of the company's resources on AI-related roles. That's kind of interesting. So the lieutenant governor of the great state of Mississippi, Rhino, he has issued a letter that essentially apologizes to teachers. And not surprising, he places the blame down the hall on the House. We'll ask Representative Rob Roberson if he cares to weigh in on that. And he sent this letter to the Parents Campaign. Why would the lieutenant governor send a letter to the Parents Campaign addressed to Nancy Loom? She runs it.
Because they're joined at the hip.
You know, I could understand sending a letter to the teachers, the people who were affected, but what is effectively a political advocacy mouthpiece? Seriously? Pandering to them?
What, you don't think he runs every decision by them?
That's really disheartening.
Because that's the way it seems.
It does. But I got this letter. I'm looking at it right now. It was issued yesterday. I am writing to express my disappointment in the House of Representatives' decision to kill Senate bills, blah, 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 blah. Well, the House had the bill, too. Golly. Okay, we're going to take a break right here. We're coming right back. Don't forget Dr. Joe Childs from Delta State. Mark Vargas was part of the Iraq Task Force 2007 to 2010, and Representative Rob Roberson at 12:05 on Middays.
From the Seabrook, Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Back with you in the Element Wealth studio. Are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. Also on the national political front, Trump ally Senator Steve Daines from the great state of Montana says, nope, not going to do it again. Not running for re-election is the senator. I think that's a safe seat, but he's out of there. He's been there a while, of course. We'll see what happens with respect to who might step up to run for that particular office. High schools losing the struggle to block pot. That's a headline story in the Wall Street Journal, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Legislation makes marijuana culturally acceptable and easy to get. It was a party in the bathroom. That's what's being reported. Unbelievable. Man, oh man. So, let's see what else we got. Something else I wanted to get to there. We talked about oil pushing. Oh, Morgan Stanley. We shared that with you. Laying off 2,500 folks. Rahm Emanuel. He's back in the media. It looks like he may be a candidate for president. I'm a little shocked at that. He, of course, heavily involved in the Obama administration. And what was he, the mayor of Chicago, I believe, for some time? And a judge has ordered the government to start refunding about $130 billion in tariffs. I don't think that we've seen the end of that yet, but that's where we stand right now. And the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal, they're also signaling that to Republicans to be ever so careful with the situation in Texas. And the fact their article today, ominous Texas signals for Republicans. Maybe they don't realize their midterm election trouble is what the editorial board says, but they certainly should get the message after Tuesday's primary results in Texas. He said Democrats are climbing over one another to vote, and control of the Senate is in play. God help us, man. Surely hope that's not the case. Also, saw some interviews yesterday afternoon and this morning with senators, U.S. senators, talking about the president's request to increase the military budget. He wants to spend $1.5 trillion on the military. We currently spend about $1 trillion. So this would be a 50% increase. And the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, we've had their chief executive on the program before, a couple of weeks ago, Maya McGinnis. Very insightful, very bright. Her team has done the math and crunched the numbers and said this could add $5.8 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years. So already we're expected to add about $22 trillion. Some may even put it as high as $25 trillion over the next 10 years to our present debt of $38 trillion. If we increase the military budget by $500 billion, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says that would add $5.8 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years. Bottom line is you're looking at adding $30 trillion to the debt tab over the next 10 years. That would put us, I can't even get it out of my mouth, just under $70 trillion? $70 trillion? This is something the president really feels strongly about, wanting to increase spending, and all the senators I saw interviewed said, yeah, let's do it. I just wish they'd say, but wait a second, that would have had $5.8 trillion to the debt. Maybe we ought to cut something elsewhere out of the budget. If this indeed is something that we need to protect the security of the country, that is your primary responsibility. I'm down for that. That's at the top of the list of what the role of government is. It's all this other stuff that I question, and I think many Americans do as well. It's just amazing to me, Rhino, the temerity. Oh, yeah, just add $500 billion. Like, dude, we're already producing just about $2 trillion a year. What's another $500 billion? And it's disappointing that Republicans wouldn't say, I'm for this, or I could align with the president on this request, as long as we're also cutting somewhere else to offset. That's what we should be doing. The old pay-as-you-go. rules, pay-go rules. Meanwhile, Bernie
Well,
Sanders...
they won't come out with, we should cut somewhere else, because then somebody's going to ask them, well, what should we cut?
Oh, I know, and they can't answer that. Ever. That's unfortunate. Bernie Sanders, in the meantime, he and Ro Khanna, the representative from Silicon Valley, Democrat from California, who's been on MidDays before, they've teamed up with a proposal to levy a 5% annual wealth tax, not on income, on your assets. Just whatever the value of your assets are, boom, 5%, send it up. Can you imagine how screwed up that would be? You start talking about valuing the assets on higher profile figures that've got a book full of assets. You'd have to hire every accountant in the country and appraiser in the country to determine the value to levy the tax on. And of course, Bernie, he's so resentful and hateful and jealous of the big tech titan billionaires. He said it would cost Elon Musk $42 billion a year, Zuckerberg $11 billion, and Jeff Bezos as well. Just send $11 billion, $11 billion to the government. $4.4 trillion in estimated revenues, what they would expect. That would be over 10 years. But here's the thing, as I've said so many times, they want to deliver this and spout this lip service of, oh, the reason we're running these deficits is because the billionaires don't pay their fair share. But in this proposal, they're not using that money to trim the deficit. It's always programs, right? Oh, this gives us more money for more programs. And in this case, you've seen this. They want to ensure that every public school teacher earns a $60,000 a year salary minimum. And they've got some grandiose plans to, quote, build affordable homes to pay for your child care, and then they want to send everybody $3,000 a year. Just boop, here's $3,000. And that's just so I guess the purpose is to just take out of this pocket and put it in somebody else's pocket. This just blatant redistribution. But more importantly, like I said, we're not using that money, assuming that's the amount that you would actually receive. We're not using that money to trim deficits, to be fiscally responsible. Oh, no, more programs. Just unbelievable. So I guess I'm upset with both sides today, honestly. I think this is crazy. It's wackadoodle. It's got no chance, and it's not constitutional to boot. But, with respect to the president, who is stumping for this additional $500 billion, I mean, that's just mind-boggling to me to send to an agency that still has trillions of dollars of funding for which they cannot account. And we're going to send them 50% more? 50%. That is just mind-boggling, to increase an agency's budget in government at any level by 50%. When do we ever say no? We ain't got it. I guess the answer to that, unfortunately, is no. Man. And absolutely, I want the country to be safe, protected, well defended, all the above, and our U.S. military to have the best of everything to carry out that mission, that charge. Surely we can do better than that, though, man. We're going to come right back in the Element Wealth studio. Stay with us.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Well studio on this
Friday Eve.
It's our pleasure to welcome now Dr. Joe Childs. He is the Dean of the College of Business and Aviation at Delta State University. Dr. Childs, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Glad to be here and glad to speak to your audience.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to hear about this additional funding you just received that's going to help you bolster one of your aviation programs, and in particular, the one related to agricultural aviation. Tell us about that.
Right. Delta State has had a history of really strong commercial aviation program, and about 3 years ago, with the help of a similar grant, we started an ag aviation apprenticeship program. Again, we're grateful for the funding that came from our state senator who helped us get that, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, where we started an apprenticeship program training ag aviation pilots, where what we were trying to do is enhance the safety, provide more precision aerial application usages, and we had a very successful, in fact, we're in our 4th cohort right now, and it was so successful and beginning to be recognized on a national level that we were able to secure funding for the next 2 to 3 years as well. Okay.
So what sort of careers specifically, Dr. Childs, do these programs prepare students for?
Right. So these are ag aviation pilots. You probably see them flying around. Often they're orange aircraft. Sometimes they're called crop dusters. And they serve as a vital component in our food supply chain. Sometimes they're overlooked as to how important and significant their role is in securing a supply chain for food. But they work with the local farmers and provide aerial application. What we do is provide additional training above and beyond what aerial applicators normally would learn how to do, where we provide enhanced safety training, more information on precision, how to apply efficiently and effectively the applications that they do. So we have, you might call them crop duster pilots. There's a shortage of pilots because of retirement. So we're backfilling that. And then the other thing that we're doing is providing recurrent training in the immediate future for the pilots that we're training, those that want to come back and get more recurrent training as well.
Okay, so as an old private instrument rated pilot, I haven't flown several years, but even when I was for about 12 years, constant innovation, right, in new technology in aviation, in particular with respect to avionics. I would say probably more so than any other area. The single pane of glass, as we call it now, has replaced a more traditional six-pack of instruments. How has that changed in agricultural aviations, Dr. Childs?
Right. Well, obviously, with the emergence of global positioning, satellite technology, GPS, remote sensing technologies, as well as new technologies that are installed in the aircraft that enables the pilots to fly very straight lines, to be able to go back and get right at and understand are they flying exactly at the right altitude. Yeah. So it's very much a science where the pilot is looking out the cockpit so they can see what's happening, but they're also monitoring very precise, specific gauges that make sure that they're exactly on their flight path at the exact right altitude, and that helps to minimize overspray. It helps to make sure that they're precisely applying the product exactly where it needs to be. It saves on overspray and costs. It provides a much more precise, efficient way of applying their product.
So, as part of the education of the curriculum, Dr. Childs, I assume they're actually flying these aircraft. Does the university own some aircraft for that purpose?
Exactly. So we've worked with our industry partners, both in the state and nationally, and we partner with Draft LLC, Ike Bernetti, who's a national leader in aviation, ag aviation, who's helped us put together the curriculum. He helps lead and train the pilots on how to do this. And so the students who enter the program already have their private pilot certificate. We work with them to make sure they have enough tailwheel time. And then they work at Delta State and our aircraft to earn their instrument rating. Then they move on over to Draft, our partner, and they learn how to fly the aircraft for aerial application.
Okay.
Then after they become competent at that, they come back to our normal flight ops and they get their commercial certificate. Along the way, we also have a lot of ground school that teaches them how to get the license to be able to apply the applications that they have. Then they do a turbine transition course where they learn how to fly the higher performance aircraft. And then I'm really excited to also share this. In the near future, we'll be bringing onto our fleet a one-of-a-kind custom-made simulator that will enable us to accelerate our ability to run scenarios with pilots for precision and safety.
Wow, that's really cool. So what kind of interest are you seeing, Dr. Childs?
Well, this is grabbing national attention. We are rapidly becoming known as the national leader in ag aviation training. We've heard from other universities that are interested in not only partnering with us, but also sending students. We have applications that come from all over the country, but our priority is to focus on developing workforce here in the Mississippi Delta and our own local community. Sure. We want to make sure that Mississippi and our regional areas have adequate workforce to be able to serve the needs of our farmers right here in the state of Mississippi. That's our first priority.
Absolutely. Are you finding that many of the students come from a family of aviation agricultural professionals?
Right. Yes, really good question. Many of these, many farmers, as you know, as well as aerial applicators, are multi-generational businesses. And where we find our best students, and we have a very rigorous screening process and a panel that makes sure that we're getting the best of the best. We check to make sure that they have a mentor, that if they're coming from a family business, that we interview not only the student, but we also do the background checks on the sponsoring organization, so that we know that these students are, once they get trained, they're actually going to go back into the field, get mentoring, working as they're developing their experience with applicators. So they have to have a background already of a connection with the job ready to go.
Okay. I'm not surprised at that, honestly. I don't think you are either. That it's a very specialized niche type field. And it's certainly very important, as you indicate, to the state of Mississippi. And achieving efficiencies in that regard are also important because I'm sure you're quite aware our farmers are really struggling financially in the state of Mississippi right now.
Right. And the value proposition we have for them is that we are helping their vendors, you could say the aerial applicators, to be more precise so that they can save on resources, so it's cheaper for the farmer to be the farmer saves money if they're using pilots that have been trained on how to do this very efficiently. And also insurance costs go down. We've worked with insurance partners already. Students who go through our program and they can demonstrate additional training are able to work with their insurance agents to get more affordable insurance that reduces the total cost that they have in their operation. They pass those savings on to the farmers when the farmers pay the bill to be able to get the application.
That's a good point. I never thought about that, but of course the better trained and qualified are these pilots, then they're looked more favorably upon by the insurers. Simple as that.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that makes our program really strong is that we have industry experts who do the training. precisely for not only the pilot training and the application training, but we bring in experts on anything, even particularly the science of droplets, the chemicals and everything, so that the pilots are very precise, they're very efficient, they apply what they need only into the space that it needs to be, and that reduces issues of overspray and those kinds of things that we mentioned too. And then ultimately the safety of the pilot. Sure. This is a challenging industry that people are in, and we want to make sure that our pilots are around with us and that they're safe and they're demonstrating the highest level of professionalism in the industry.
Absolutely. Dr. Joe Childs, the Dean of the College of Business and Aviation at Delta State University, has been our guest. Enjoyed talking to you, Dr. Childs. Really, really good work there, and congratulations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
You bet. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
So just looking at the numbers, Rhino, on this Texas primary election on Tuesday, looks like with 95% of the votes in is the data I'm looking at, 2.165 million, and on the Republican side, 2.311 on the Democrat side. So just under 200,000 additional voters in the Democratic primary. And that's what Republicans certainly are concerned about and should take instruction from and note of and adjust accordingly. And I think this is one of the reasons that the president has said he's going to endorse one of these Republican candidates that are advancing to a runoff and ask the other to step aside so that they can focus on the Democrat. That's what they're looking for, and just get totally focused on that as they pursue and prosecute the election in November. Man, it's going to be something to watch. I talked yesterday with Will about the amount of money invested in the primaries, north of $122 million combined in primary election. So on the Republican side, we may see $100 million invested in the runoff, which is in May. So over a 3-month period of time, $100 million wouldn't shock me, especially with it being so close, right? Both feel like, I just need a little more money and I can overcome a 1% delta, in this case, is about what it amounts to. I think at the latest data I saw, that's what it showed. The winner in terms of the total number of votes and percentage of the vote attained, John Cornyn, it was just 1%. Wasn't a lot. So I think that Ken Paxton 40.7 to 41.9, so 1.2%. I'm thinking Ken Paxton says, we just need more money and we can overcome that 26,000 vote delta. And they're all going to be fighting over Wesley Hunt's 292,000 votes. That's what's really going to happen there. He came in third place in the race with 13% of the vote. So they're going to try to, each of those two runoff candidates, capture as much as they can of that. They're going to spend a lot of money. So I think the president's strategy is the proper one. I'm going to endorse one of you guys. The other, I'm asking you to step aside. Let's put all our time, our effort, our money behind the Republican candidate to take on who is a wacko but a formidable Democratic candidate in the general election. On the C Spire text line, got several texts. Let's get to those. Rusty says, talking about earlier about the bills just dissolving essentially down there in the state capitol. Not a whole lot is proceeding. I think I shared with you earlier, 10, according to State Watch, Rhino, have passed. 10 is what I got. 10. And 4 of those are like naming something, right? No disrespect there, but not any meaty or contentious or controversial legislation. Nothing that would affect everybody in the state or a large group of people, as is the case with many of these bills. So Rusty says, kill all that, but have a bill to slap working Mississippians in the face with the NIL tax-exempt bill. Yeah, so I did ask Senator Daniel Sparks offline about that. He was on the program yesterday. His thoughts on that bill, he said he's going to kill it once it comes from the House into the Senate. This, of course, would exempt all income that is received through the NIL program for college athletes would be exempt for state income taxes. That is an effort to ensure that the state of Mississippi can compete for these athletes that might seek to play for a school in a state that doesn't have state income tax. Texas and Florida come to mind. Then, of course, you've got California. Sometimes we get into some competition for athletes in California. Think about going to school there and paying that 13% state income tax. That's more than a lot of people pay, and just below the average effective rate for federal income tax in this country of all taxpayers. Yeah. He says that Rusty says my text was meant to be sent earlier about killing the PERS improvement teacher pay raises. Missed the send button. I get it. Hopefully we got that right for you, Rusty. I think you're, and help us out if I didn't represent it accurately, that you're upset that we can't get these bills to address the PERS program, get it funded, and also change the number of years required to retire at any age. First responders, of course, expressed their concerns about that and some other problems they had. That's in the Tier 5 program, which, by the way, went into effect a couple of days ago. Everybody that becomes a public sector employee as of March 1st would be enrolled in the Tier 5 program, and all those provisions would apply. So that, and then, of course, both sides had proposed teacher pay raises. The House had a more generous proposal than the Senate, but neither passed the other side, which means they're dead, as of right now, at least. Question is, can they be revived by changing the rules? I'm simply pointing out that you got an obstacle there in the Senate. Not sure if the Democrats would side with the Republicans there or just let them mire in their own muck. You guys got this fight going on. You can see that. On the other hand, a problem for them is if they don't help out in changing the rules, well, then we don't address PERS and teacher pay this year. That's the other concern. Would the governor call a special session? I don't know. For that purpose, I don't really have any insight into that. Seems crazy, though, that the more straightforward and high priorities in the state can't get addressed properly in the regular session. That's not what we signed up for, I think most people would say. Let's see what else we have here on the C Spire text line. That came in earlier. Appreciate that. Rusty. By the way, Jason Starkville always likes to remind whenever I talk about Ro Khanna, he refers to him affectionately as my buddy. I just want to make it clear again, he's not my buddy. I just happened to meet him and invited him on the program. I met him when I was at the inauguration, and he came on. We're going to try to get him on again. As Democrat members of Congress go, he is a person that you can have a more respectful, meaningful, civil discussion with, although I find very little that I agree with him on. I certainly disagree wholeheartedly with his dumb wealth tax. That's like Bernie Sanders' dream, maybe since he's been on the earth, as far as I know. Nothing's more important to him than shaking down and confiscating the assets of people of whom he is insanely jealous. I really do believe that. I totally do. He can't stand the fact that some people in this country did better than he did financially, because he produces like zero value for society, and these people produce enormous value because we all use the stuff they created.
But somehow he still manages to own 3 houses.
That's exactly right. So let's be honest. Even with his...
He used capitalism to convince idiots to buy his book about being an idiot.
That's totally true. It's totally true. And made money from that, and then enjoyed, shall we say, the financial rewards from that. That's the way it works. But yet, he denounces that system on a regular basis.
Because he knows there's enough idiots on the planet, and especially in the United States of America, that vote Democrat, that will lap it up every day and twice on Sunday.
Ricky in Aberdeen says Newsmax was really sounding the warning about Tallarico last night. Ricky, I know and appreciate that you tune in here all the time. Rhino, I started talking about this guy several months ago, only because he was so vocal in opposition to school choice, and he was making like a video a day. Greg Abbott's voucher scam, that's what he called it, over and over and over again. Maybe the Speaker, Jason White, should consider associating the school choice opponents with this guy instead of the ACLU. Coming right back with Mark Vargas. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook.
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Beyond the boundaries of your city's lights stand the heroes waiting for your cries. So many times you did not bring this on yourself.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Mark Vargas. He was a member of the Iraq Task Force, part of the Office of the Secretary of Defense back then in 2007, 2010 timeframe. Mark, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
It's my honor. Thank you.
You bet. So, first and foremost, I guess we'll kind of kick it off with, how do you contrast what was going on back in that time frame when you were part of the Iraq Task Force to what is happening today in Iran? How do they appear the same, and how are they different?
That's a great question. And for starters, I was there in Baghdad 14 times between 2007 and 10 as a civilian staffer, and then the Office of the Secretary of Defense. And what we knew then and we know now is that in the green zone, the rockets and mortars that were targeting American service members, that were targeting American civilians, American contractors, American allies there in Iraq, they were all made in Iran. It was no secret that the rockets and missiles and IEDs hidden along the roads were all Iranian made. So fast forward today, dare I say, Gerard, that President Trump had the testicular virility to do what presidents should have done but didn't do, and that was take out the head of the snake. Think about this for your listeners and for your viewers. Since 2006, Iran has funded and orchestrated over 1,000 terror attacks. And I'm not a lawyer, but I looked this up because I thought it was very important. Legally, between the United States and international law, if the killing of one single service member is is an act of war. Iran has killed over 600 U.S. service members in combat in Iraq alone. And so they've funded terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthi. Hezbollah to the tune of $700 million a year. Hamas to the tune of $100 million per year. Hamas, just to remind your viewers, Hamas tortures women and children. They also use them as human shields. They launch rockets and mortars off the tops of hospitals and schools, daring you to fire back. These are evil, evil people, an evil regime. And so it was absolutely essential for the safety and security of the world, and particularly the United States, where they chant death to America. It was absolutely essential to cut off the head of the snake, and we're all going to be safer because of it.
Mark, I'm sure as a member of the task force and your vast experience in the region, you've come to understand the culture, I guess you could call it, for lack of a better way to describe it, the religious doctrine. How do they justify, I guess, this just evil, this wickedness towards other humans as in the name of a religion that seems to be, to some extent, grounded in morals and peace, but then they take these kinds of actions which are just contradictory to that. What did you find out about that?
Well, it's unlike nothing we've ever seen before. The children are taught at a very young age in grade school about killing Americans and ending the West, a complete annihilation. Their extremist religion teaches them that that's service to their God, that your reward is in heaven for killing as many Americans as you possibly can. Death to America. There was a video, Gerard, that was being circulated, one of many being circulated on social media, and it's been verified as an actual video of a little boy going up to the Ayatollah and saying, "I want to sacrifice myself, in service to Allah." They are taught that at such a young age. It's something that most Americans don't understand, or anyone around the world, unless you've sort of been in that environment. We're used to everyday criminals that that will terrorize a few people at a time. That they are brought up to kill hundreds of thousands at a time, and your reward will be bigger the more that you can annihilate. And so, again, that's why it was absolutely essential to cut off the head of the snake, because the Iranians were spending billions and billions and billions of dollars a year to fulfill that goal of death to America, death to the West, and death to all of our allies.
Well, Mark, when you talk about them spending such a huge sum of money, I mean, it's not like they have such a strong economy and GDP where they can afford that. So is that robbing the people of the country from just the basic opportunities and necessities of life? It's like, well, we can either go build bombs and pay for military assets and all that requires, or we can have something to eat and have a life. I don't see how the two can coexist.
Well, that's right. And that's why we're seeing celebrations by Iranians throughout the entire world. Even in a place like Chicago, where I'm at today, on your show, we've seen over the last 5-6 years, people protesting violently. We saw riots. This is certainly not a pro-Trump city and pro-Trump Democratic leaders. They were marching and protesting and supporting Palestine during the war there between Iran and Hamas. But just over the weekend, literally hundreds and hundreds of people were out there celebrating, waving Iranian flags, waving American flags, waving Israeli flags, shockingly, because people know this regime has brutally murdered their own people. 40,000 were killed during protests over the last couple of months. Their economy is in the gutter. Their leaders, extremist leaders, are stealing money from the people so that they can fund terrorist groups around the world. This is why people are celebrating the end of this regime.
Mark, just very straightforward question. Are we winning?
Yes, that's a good question. And I believe that we are undoubtedly. We've hit over 1,700 targets. We've hit 17 ships. But more importantly, Gerard, the number one point to why we're winning is that the head of the snake is now cut off. The funder of terrorism, the group supporting these terrorists throughout that region, their leaders are gone. Their funding sources are gone. And it's sending shockwaves throughout the world to these other rogue regimes, particularly China, North Korea. Certainly not a rogue regime in Russia, but you better believe Putin's thinking twice about this, and President Trump's strong actions, speak softly but carry a big stick. And so on the messaging front and on the military front, we are no doubt winning this war.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, as you know, said we're in here for as long as it takes. He did hint at sort of an 8-week time frame. The president has said at least 4 weeks, maybe more than that. But the goal he has made clear is to neutralize them. Now, that could be a bit subjective, but the way I understand it is neutralize Iran to the point where they no longer can inflict or have the ability or the means to inflict terror anywhere in the world.
That's right. And, President Trump, and you're a successful businessman, President Trump is a successful businessman, under promise but over produce. I think, we'll probably be within the 4 or 5 week time frame. I mean, you think Israel alone has successfully hit 2,000 targets. We've successfully hit 1,700 targets. Just a couple of hours ago, Israel launched an attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so we've got support from all of the many of the countries in that region: Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE. And so I think, what the president's also doing, while we're hitting these successful targets and completely eliminating any of their capacities and sending a crystal clear message throughout the world, simultaneously, the idea is, how do we begin to stand up Iran and get a leadership team in there that's not going to continue the activities of their previous leaders, and how do we get the people to stand up again? From a business perspective, one of the quick things that I've learned about in Iraq, and the worst case scenario for terrorists and terrorist cells are people working. And how do you convert a war front into a storefront? Yeah. That's one of the keys to Donald Trump's success in creating peace throughout the world. Every peace agreement that President Trump has negotiated has converting a war front into a storefront piece to it, about investment and economic development and job creation and bringing money back into the economy. Iranians want to work again. Their economy has collapsed. They want to have jobs. They want to have purpose. This will provide that purpose and make Iran stronger than it ever has been before.
It's a great point, and it may be stating the obvious, but just feels to me like, I've said it on the program before, the world would just be so much better off if we could totally eliminate this regime and the future threat, because it feels like we're always on eggshells waiting for the next shoe to drop. We got to get out of that mode where we're just not worried about that anymore. We got about 30 seconds left. What do you think, Mark?
Listen, I urge your viewers and listeners just to be vigilant. Violent and dangerous terrorist cells have snuck into our country over Biden's open borders. They're here right now. They're awakened. And so just be vigilant, and we'll win this war.
Mark, appreciate you coming on. Really enjoyed your insight in the conversation. Mark Vargas, a member of the Iraq Task Force from 2007 and 2010. Thanks a lot, Mark.
God bless you. Thank you.
You bet. We're coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth studio.
Up of Mississippi.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We are back with you in the Element Wealth studio. That was great. Really appreciate that. Mark Vargas, a member of the Iraq Task Force, that, of course, part of the office of the Secretary of Defense during the 2007-2010 timeframe. Great insight. Certainly a person who knows his stuff. And I appreciate him coming on the program. So, what else is going on out there in the legislature? Not a lot. As we told you earlier, 10 bills have passed. When I ran the report, Rhino, I showed that this time last year, over 200 had passed, which sounds about right, doesn't it? I would think. But at this point,
I think when I ran it, it was 267.
Okay, all right. So we got the same stuff there. So not a surprise, I think, in that respect, that this year has just been a rather light year for getting the opposite sides of the Capitol to embrace what is sent their way. Maybe we just got off on a contentious, confrontational foot when HB 2 went down in flames in the manner in which it went down in flames. That, of course, the Education Freedom Act, sponsored by the Speaker of the House, prioritized by the Speaker, transmitted down in a very special Rhino procession down to the Senate, and was immediately disposed of by Senate Education Committee Chairman Dennis DeBar. We counted 84 seconds, I think, total, to lay it to rest. And it just feels like everything kind of went downhill from there, I guess is one way to put it. I'm also pretty sure that maybe the Senate has still got a little bit of the old burr up their saddle, as this expression goes, from the way the tax bill went down last year, with the drafting error that didn't get caught, and having gone through a multitude of layers down there in the Senate. And when they asked for some reconsideration there on the part of the House said, nope, we're taking it as is. And off it went to the governor, became law. And then they had a celebration there on the mansion lawn. It didn't feel like some of those in attendance were in a celebratory mood, however. Oh, man. But, yeah, I've had several people ask me this morning, do you think we'll have a special session to address the teacher pay raise issue, the PERS issue? Those are probably the two that top the list there of matters that I think members on both sides feel need to be addressed. I don't know. I really don't. I haven't talked to the governor about it. He wouldn't tip his hand one way or another, honestly. I don't blame him. He shouldn't.
I would honestly be surprised at this point.
I would too. That's where I'm leaning. And it's a fair question for our next guest.
If you got the lieutenant governor writing love letters to the parents' campaign about how they're so disappointed they couldn't do everything the parents' campaign wanted, yeah, it seems like a special session would be a waste of time.
It's really disappointing that the lieutenant governor would write a letter to like this special group. I think that's what I'm disappointed about. And by the way, even if it was a group with whom I agree in a line from a policy perspective, I don't think I'd be happy about that. I don't know that, and I don't think that it would be fair to suggest that we don't have this sort of political gamesmanship going on both sides. However, I think it's fair to say from the perspective of the speaker, who was upset at the way HB 2 was handled, he directed his condemnation and criticism to the other side of the hall. That's fair. I think that's totally fair. But to write a letter expressing disappointment and almost asking for a mea culpa, but by the way, it's those terrible people in the House there that put us in this situation. I don't know. Now, the speaker did compare, as did the governor, as you know, members of the Senate who killed the education bill to the ACLU and the Southern Poverty Law Center, and he was pretty upset about that. But you're a political figure. That's fair game. But I just don't know about writing a letter to a special interest group that has a very narrow focus, as you know. Sorry we couldn't get this done for you. Well, what about the rest of the people out there? I just felt like that was something perhaps that could have been avoided, should have been avoided, but that's just my opinion. But that's what we get paid to do here, is express our opinion. And I'll just leave it at that. We're up against a break right here. When we come back, it's going to be Representative Rob Roberson. He, of course, serves as the House Education Committee chairman. It's Fox News SuperTalk News. I don't know if you've seen this. Argentina President Javier Milei says the left can't applaud me when he's speaking to the body because their hands are in other people's pockets.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. Haven't been home in a year or more. I hope she holds on a little longer. Send a letter on a long summer day.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays, live from the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday Eve.
It's our great pleasure to welcome now Rob Roberson. He serves in the Mississippi House of Representatives. He represents District 43. That includes Octibaha and Winston counties. Is that still the case?
It's only Octibaha now.
You told me that last time. My apologies for that. But more importantly, he's chair of the House Education Committee. More importantly for our discussion today, I should say.
Yes, sir.
So, good to see you again. It's been a rather raucous legislative session is one way to put it. I told some folks yesterday, you might as well go home. What do you got? What do you got left to work on? You gavelled in today, right?
We did. We gavelled in today at 10. I have a tendency to be a perpetual optimist. I do think that before we sign you dive, we will maybe move some things forward that need to get moved forward one way or the other. But you know what? It's not the end of the world if we come back next year and have to deal with some of this stuff. I don't like it. I don't necessarily want that to be the case.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that we come back every year and we do the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
I'm not thrilled that we find ourselves in the position we find ourselves in today, though.
Well, I think that's true across the hall as well. But one of the concerns that Rhino and I were talking about earlier is if you get to a point where you need to stay in the regular session to get some of this legislation revived, that would require suspending the rules and might not get Democrat cooperation in the Senate where we don't have a supermajority anymore. So I'm sure that has been calculated in all this.
I think there's probably been some weighing of that, at least from the lieutenant governor, and I'm certain that the chairman of education has thought about that dynamic as well.
Okay.
It's an uphill battle for them. My question for the Democrats or Republicans or whomever would not want to do it that way, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, if we say we're all in favor of making these changes, why not do that? On the flip side of it, there is a political dynamic that's at play right now, and getting everybody to agree that this is the thing to do and the way we approach it, it's difficult. Even passing a regular bill through the House is difficult.
It's difficult. No doubt. That's true. So I think at stake, of course, all eyes are on the teacher pay raise. You had companion bills proposed in the respective chambers, 2,000 down to Senate, 5,000 from your guys' side. And, of course, those are nowhere at this point. And a lot of folks are upset about that. I'm sure you've heard from a lot of people in the last couple of days. And they're looking for answers and sort of a path forward. What can you tell them about that today?
Well, first and foremost, until we leave, I have the opinion that we will constantly be looking at what avenues that could possibly be taken.
Okay.
That being said, if this doesn't work this year, this is the way this process works. And if we can't get a decision on the table. Now, one of the talking points that I've heard over the last couple of days has been that the House killed the teacher pay. That is not true. I mean, you can have a different opinion on issues, but you can have a different opinion on facts. And the facts are that there was a $5,000 teacher pay sitting over there. Not only was it a $5,000 teacher pay across the board, but an additional $3,000 for special ed teachers, which would have been an $8,000 increase to encourage more special ed teachers.
Right.
One of the reasons that the House position was what it was is that, number one, we felt like we had a better bill. We felt like that it addressed some teacher shortage issues that we had, specifically in that special ed spot. And whenever you're looking at this, and you're looking at this from a policy as to what we're trying to accomplish, then our position was that we sent you a better bill that had, and not only did we send you a better bill, but we sent you a budget that had it worked into. The bill that was sent to us didn't have any of that budgetary stuff sent in there, sent to us. So we were not, we were putting our money where our mouth is, and we sent that bill to them. Not only did we send that in that bill, but we also got some fixes that we needed to do. Try to make sure that our police officers and first responders were reduced down to 25 years. The information and all of the things that claimed to be wanted were in that bill. If that bill wasn't perfect or wasn't something that was going to be agreed on by the Senate leadership, that's fine. That we understand that we might have needed to go to conference over it. But the first part of the session, they passed their pay increase. We looked at it. We said, you know what? We've got a better idea. We sent it down there to them. We said 3 weeks ago that we weren't going to have another meeting. It was very clear as to the position that we had, and nothing happened.
So you're aware, I believe, that the lieutenant governor has actually drafted a letter and has transmitted it to this organization known as the Parents Campaign, and in the very first statement, he indicates, "I am writing to express my disappointment in the House of Representatives' decision to kill the Senate bills." So it kind of sounds like he's laying the blame at the feet of the House here for this not getting across the finish line.
I have a lot of respect in the lieutenant governor, and I think the world of him, but let me be real clear on something. If he thinks that blame is only going to be laid at the feet of the House, he is sorely missing a political issue here, that it's going to be spread out everywhere, and I have zero doubt of that. The other side of the coin is that why in the world would you send a letter out to a group that has consistently been a left-leaning organization? It has never been an organization that tried to do anything from the center or from the right. It's always been a left-leaning organization. I'm not going to doubt or suggest in any way, shape, or form that she doesn't have a right to be that and do that, and she has every meaningful right to go out here and do this. But for a Republican lieutenant governor to I guess make a statement directly to that group suggests to me that he feels like he's getting his marching orders from that side of the aisle, and that seems strange to me. I'm sure maybe he has his reasons. Maybe they're good reasons. I just can't, for the life of me, figure out what they are right now. Like I said, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him, and won't doubt that his heart's in the right place. But I can't imagine why that would be the case.
I think it's largely due to their very consistent and strong alignment in opposition to education freedom policy. I think it really boils down to that more than anything else. I got to tell you, we just talked about it. My personal opinion is I don't think it was appropriate to draft such a letter and send it to an individual associated with kind of a third-party organization. I would have been okay, I guess, if one was sent to the teachers and saying, hey, look, we understand you're relying on this and we're still working on it. I think that would have been perfectly
fair.
appropriate.
I think that's completely fair.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons he may have went that route, I think her messaging is, like you said, been very consistent, and I think that there are a lot of people out there that believe every word out of her mouth, and I think he's trying to keep that relationship as strong as possible. In all fairness to the governor, if that's what he wants to do, that he has the right to do that. I also think that if anyone thinks that school choice is going to go away, they're sadly mistaken. This is something that's going to be talked about. I want it to be a Mississippi version of school choice that works for us and is plugged in a way that is budgetarily responsible, but also gives every child, whether you're living in the Delta of Mississippi or whether you're living on the coast, every child that opportunity to get the best education they can. I've said this 1,000 times. School choice is not the panacea to fix everything in education. I don't suggest that. But you know what? For the 1 or 2 or 3% of parents out there that are looking for a different solution, why would we get in the way?
Yeah.
Why in the world would we harm that parent to make a decision that's going to be better than where they're currently? And you can be in a good school system and it just doesn't work for your child. Why would we harm that? I don't understand the thinking of that. We're going to have schools, public schools in Mississippi, at least in my lifetime. I don't think it's ever going to change. I don't think it'll change in the future at all. And we have to support them. But for the life of me, I can't understand why we would get in the way of parents making a different decision if it's needed.
Let's keep talking after the break.
Yes, sir.
We got Representative Roberson in the Element Well studio. Coming right back.
I feel more beautiful. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
all my friends. Number low rider.
We're back in the Element Well studio. We've got Representative Roberson chairs the House Education Committee, also represents Oktibbeha County in Mississippi. So, where do we go from here? I guess you said you're eternally optimistic. The question that comes up all the time, Representative Roberson, and I know that the governor doesn't call you and ask your opinion on how we should handle some of the affairs of the governor's office, but the question does come up: might we see a special session if we don't get anything done here?
My knee jerk today is probably not.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that is the first thing on his agenda right now.
I agree.
That being said, that my mind could change in 48 hours.
Sure.
There's always that possibility, but my knee jerk is that's probably not going to happen.
I'm with you. I don't think it will either. And the governor's a pretty good vote counter, having experience as a lieutenant governor. And I think he wouldn't do anything unless he knew for sure. I know there's some people think, well, this way we get everybody on the record rather than these no votes that happen in committees. But we pretty much know where people stand, I think. This has been going on long enough, don't you think?
I have seldom walked out of my committee or any other committee I've chaired and not known about where I stood.
Okay.
So I can't imagine the governor, as long as he's done this, I can't imagine the governor doesn't know that as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I would argue that people on your side of the hall know where people on the other side of the hall stand on a controversial issue like this.
I think that's a fair assessment. Look, there are things that come through that I think take all of us by surprise as to how maybe something would blow up after the fact.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I think we are all understanding as to where the vast majority of us stand on almost every issue.
I think that's totally right. So, what action do you think might happen? You said this isn't going away. You said folks are sadly mistaken, to quote you, if they think it is. let's say nothing happens this session, and I think that's kind of where we're heading with respect to school choice. I'm not talking about the teacher pay raise, other educational matters that are in the hopper. What might happen in the after session period?
I think that there's going to be continued discussions about this. I think that honestly, I think there's a misunderstanding as to what this looks like for Mississippi. I have had a gazillion people say, well, this is what it looked like in Florida, this is what it looked like in Alabama, this is what it looks like in Georgia, this is what it looks like in Arizona. Go on through all the states that have done it.
Yeah.
And just because it looks like something in one state doesn't mean it's going to be right for Mississippi.
Agree.
So what we want to do is do what is right for us in all of the constraints. And one of the things that has been very important to the speaker, very important to me, has been to make certain that the most needy of children have that shot. When we were in the commercial break, you and I were having a conversation, and this is a true story. I had a mother call me, and I live in a very good school district. I'm very proud of the work that Dr. McGee does and all of our teachers in Starkville, Octave Hall Public Schools. They do a wonderful job, but every now and then there is a situation that comes up where a child is just not flourishing in that environment. And this mother calls me, and this child was having some issues. The child had even mentioned harming himself and was asking me what the options were to move her child to a different spot. And y'all, the bottom line is, whenever you have all of the teachers associations and whomever contact you and say, oh, they're against school choice, tell me what I tell that mother. That they don't care that it's not politically a good idea, or they don't care. What they want is to protect their child and put their child in another environment, maybe where they're not getting bullied, or maybe where they're going to be able to flourish better. There is a multitude of reasons why a parent will pick, and I've heard the arguments, oh, well, they're just going to move them for sports. I don't care why they're moving them if it's going to make that child's life better and get them a better education in the end.
And hopefully that's the way everybody feels, but man, the protectionism that emits from the opponents is just off the charts.
It is. But I want to be real clear on this as well. Public schools are not going anywhere. We're going to have to provide money for the public schools in the future. There has been no legislature, House and Senate, has spent more money than we have spent. The Republican-led House and Senate have spent more money in public education than any other group. Our budget is $3.5 billion dollars. That doesn't include the money that comes from the federal government, which is another $2 billion, and that doesn't include your local contributions. And the local contribution doesn't follow the child. The money at the federal level may be reduced if the number is reduced. I'm not going to deny that side of it. But my goodness, if 2% of the population leaves public schools, we still have public schools, and we still have to have a conversation about what that looks like. The sad truth of the matter is that one of the big issues that are going to come up, and I have every intention of us continuing this conversation, is a consolidation and making certain that we're getting the bulk of the money down to those teachers where they need it. But you can't do that when you're running a school system with 800 kids. Right. And that's a total amount of kids that are maybe in that school district. You can't do that whenever you're so protectionary in the administration and how we look at this. We have got to be in a better position to make good, sound financial decisions for those school districts. We had a peer group that went out and did a study, and I have every intention of digging deeper into this, but they looked at transportation. They looked at the school lunch programs. They looked at the administrative costs that were all out there. And the experts in this told me that there wasn't one school district out there that if they went in and they were not being aggressive in how they were trying to show or show up these school districts. They were trying to show that they could spend their money better and maybe get that teacher that they claim they need.
Yeah.
But the people told me there was at least $2 million in every single school district that could be saved if we do a better job at those things. And it's not fair to an administrator that was a dang good school teacher that went to be a dang good principal, then all of a sudden you give them $1 million budget and you say, go run it. It's not fair to them to suggest that they're not doing their job. Sometimes it's that they don't know what to do either. And so I think it's incumbent on the leadership at the state level to give that back up to that administration to help them figure these things out. This shouldn't be adversarial, but unfortunately, in this day and age, it seems like everything that we attempt to do, especially coming from the House side, it seems that we seem to have this adversarial nature, and it really just comes down to a couple of issues that they don't like, whether that be school choice or whether that be consolidation. It always seems to come down to a protectionary system. That is not good for our kids. It's not good for our state, and frankly, it's not good for the economic well-being of our communities.
I agree, and though I understand that we have to increase teacher pay to be competitive, we have a shortage right now. We have a number of slots that are open, and we need to increase pay to encourage people to enter that profession, take those jobs. You hear it as well. I do all the time. People want to see their government be more financially responsible. A teacher pay raise is expensive. Well, I think when you add everything up with the special ed teachers, the normal teachers, we're $250 million or so, somewhere in that neighborhood.
That doesn't count the assistant teachers that we need to give a pay raise.
That's right. Forgot about that as well. That's right.
And to me, if you really want to dig into the issue as it stands, the assistant teachers deserve a pay raise more than any other group, in my opinion. They're being paid $17,000. Oh, it's poverty level.
Yeah.
So they're being paid $17,000. We've had a bill that was out there that has now died that was a $3,000 increase. I'll be honest with you, I think we should have given them more if we could have. The bottom line is that those are the assistants that do a lot of grunt work, a lot of hard work, and they work their tails off. They deserve to have an advocate in the legislature that keeps pushing for that, and I will continue to do that as long as I'm here.
Well, I think I speak for the vast majority of Mississippians. I'm sure you hear it from your constituents. They're probably okay with the teacher pay raise, but they'd like to see some cuts elsewhere. And you just pointed out that district consolidation could go a long way towards achieving that. Seems like we could do both here.
There's a balancing act here, but there's got to be cooperation from our administrators to understand that we're not evil men sitting up here trying to figure out how to make their lives harder.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hopefully we can get that message out and get unity on that. Push us across the finish line.
I hope so.
Appreciate it.
I'm with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rob Roberson has been our guest. Thanks a lot, man. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the sea.
Come on.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It's a hard world to get a break in. All the good things have been taken. But girl, there are ways to make certain things pay. Though I'm dressed in these rags, I'll wear sable someday. Hear what I say. I'm gonna ride.
Welcome back, everyone. It's MidDays from the Element Wealth studio. So, I know folks are saying, I got a friend that says we need cuts first, more money later. And do you ever think we'll see a time, Rhino, when the budget for a given year will be less than the budget from the prior year?
I sure hope not.
I just don't.
Because the reality of the time in which that happens is a reality we don't want to see.
That's exactly right. That means that austerity measures, right, are being imposed. I do remember back in the Haley Barbour days, we came dangerously close to eliminating all athletics in the community colleges. That almost happened. That's when we were really struggling financially as a state. And there was lots of other austerity measures as well that were being, and just broad cuts across the board. I just don't see that happening. I really don't. I don't think that it's a problem as long as taxpayers, citizens are receiving value from the investment, and that it's not protectionism, which is just so alive and well and a big problem in our state. Whether it's protecting a job or a building or an asset or a system or a process, it doesn't matter, or a body. We're awash in protectionism. And honestly, that is somewhat contrary to conservatism, because that means we're not allowing whatever's being protected to exist based on market forces and dynamics. We're doing it out of cronyism to a great extent. But the discussion about consolidation of schools in the state, it does draw the ire from a lot of people who would be involved in that, would participate in such consolidation, shall we say. And they, of course, vigorously oppose it, and they make their opposition quite well known. And they get hostile often in expressing their opposition. So I don't think I see that coming anytime soon. I'm all for exploring ways to consolidate school districts. We've said that many, many times on the program. I have caution, however, that it's not the panacea that many believe it would be. But does it need to be explored and investigated and modeled? 100%. Absolutely. It's incumbent upon us to do that, in my view. But we can't get anything going down there in the legislature after multiple attempts to try to just get it on the table. So that is a problem. Now, when it comes to...
Can't even get the ball rolling when you follow the "we're dragging our feet" model that is often used under the dome, where you have to set up a committee to study it.
Oh, that's right.
And then you get the committee's report, and you have to sit on it for a year.
That's right.
And then after you've sat on that report for a year, you're likely going to have to start another committee to get an updated report. And then you get that second report, and you have both reports, and you compare and contrast. And then you might get a bill that tangentially references those reports.
Right. You mean anything to avoid making tough decisions. I think that's basically what you're saying there. Tough, unpopular decisions. That's what we're all about, because that might get your picture taken off the wall, as the old saying goes. Gosh, I sure hope we can move forward and away from that more traditional practice, but that certainly has been embedded in our government at so many levels. And I think we're, as a result, not achieving optimum outcomes and results for the people. But I appreciate, and you can tell Representative Roberson, man, he's passionate about this, and and it's stressed him out. I can tell you, this has been a stressful session. When you think about chairing a committee with the speaker's top priority, and also knowing that's maybe the most controversial issue we've had in state government in quite some time, and he has absolutely taken it in stride. And you may disagree with his policy position on it, but you certainly can't disagree that he wants the best. And I would challenge anybody on that. He clearly does. and he is engaged, he is involved. He speaks to people who have differing views on this rather regularly. You can't help but, honestly, being in his position. All that for, and I'm not asking you to feel sorry for anybody, but it's not like you're getting filthy rich doing that whatsoever. He signed up for it. He knows it. He's fine with it. He's cool with it. But I don't know that a lot of other people would put up with the hassle, honestly. It is accurate to say, though, that they're kind of running out of things to do because of the bills that have essentially died that would have required a lot of debate, let's put it that way, in deliberation, conferencing. We're not going to get anything to conference because neither side passed the other side's legislation that would send them to conference if they marked it up, of course. So let's see what else we got. I quit teaching, this is on the C Spire text line, in December 2014 after 21 years of service, although it was not the only reason. The fake promises of increasing pay year after year after year were very disheartening. With 21 years of experience, I was paid on 13 and told numerous times maybe next year. You know, I hear you, but I've also got to say, and I think, Rhino, and I hope this doesn't come across as condescending or critical, but you've heard this as well. You signed up for it. You knew that, right? There are no guarantees beyond unless you got something in writing. That's true in the private sector, too. It's absolutely true. And so that's not a statement as to whether or not we should figure out a way to increase teacher pay. I think that is largely determined by market forces, and we are seeing market forces are taking their toll on our teachers' ranks. Other states have increased their teacher pay. That's an issue here. We need to do it for that reason. But I think to expect that you're going to have these continuous increases, heck, the state government employees outside of teachers, when's the last time they got one, Rhino? That's been a controversial matter as well. It's been several years. And then, of course, there's those of us that pay the taxes to fund all that want to see some relief there, right? So it's tough. So the responsibility of lawmakers is to balance all that out. It's essentially what you're doing. You're trying to make sure that you don't create a tax environment that's so onerous and so oppressive that it harms the well-being of the citizens that pay the taxes and the overall macroeconomy of the state. I know that's second-order thinking. That does figure into it, as you well know. And you want to make sure you're delivering the services that the people expect and need for their tax money. And that includes teaching. And we want to make sure that teachers are adequately compensated to deliver quality outcomes there. So that's the elixir, I guess, you got to deal with to try to balance out and mix together and make it all come out and work right. And remember, we can't borrow money. We have to balance a budget, I should say. We can borrow money to do that, but that's not a very good way to run the railroad. Paula Meridian says, it seems that all our Mississippi representatives voted against releasing sexual harassment information from congressional members. Yeah, I saw that as well. I don't have any explanation for that. I don't know what happened. A lot of people are upset about that. We should probably have somebody on pretty soon. I feel like we will, and get down to the details of that. I hesitate to opine on it until I hear the other side of the story. I'm hopeful at least there's some rational explanation for that. Right now on the surface, from an optics perspective, it looks bad. I agree. Do you think the government seems to care about the debt because a large portion is owned by Americans? In a meltdown, maybe they believe the citizens would pull them out. No, I don't think that'd be the case whatsoever. I don't think the citizens would pull them out because the citizens would be clobbered financially. Yeah, it is true that the vast majority of our federal debt we're talking about is owned by American individuals and institutions, and that if there was some sort of a meltdown, that would cause global economic collapse. There wouldn't be no way to just come out of the woodwork to bail out the government. That's just not possible. Not enough money. If he did, it would clobber the economy and our way of life. Crude oil now up over $80. That's got the markets retreating over 1,000 points down is the Dow now. Final segment next.
Hey, this is Bob, and if you're
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. So, hot off the press, Secretary Kristi Noem has been relieved of Homeland Security of her duty, been replaced by Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of the great state of Oklahoma. That is hot off the press, folks. She didn't do too well, I didn't think. Here at the recent hearing, Rhino, honestly, I wasn't too crazy about her being selected for that position from the get-go. Here's the question. Does that open up the gates for the president to relieve some other folks in the cabinet? He was known for doing that in the first go-round. Mailman Clayton on the C Spire text line says, Gerard, my wife Cheryl and I will celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary tomorrow, and the next day I will celebrate 45 years of delivering the mail for the United States Postal Service. I want to thank you and SuperTalk for keeping me company and for keeping me informed for over 25 of those years. Blessings. Wow, man, really honored and appreciate that nice note. And most importantly, happy anniversary, man. Those are two great milestones. Rhino and I are pleased to be part of your day, and we thank you for letting us know that. I hope you have a great anniversary celebration. You certainly should. 50 years. Congratulations to you and your wife, Cheryl. Awesome. Andy on the C Spire text line says, Parents campaign never shuts up, emboldened by their buddy Delbert, I guess. So regarding consolidations, now here's a person, Jason Starkville, says it hasn't been really good for the district kids based on our two that have had to deal with it. So you see, Rhino, why it's so dang hard to get this done. Because you get these kind of counter viewpoints when you have had some limited consolidation across the state. You get bad and good reports, just makes it harder to get done. And then a couple of people have said something. I know Blake in the Delta said something, and somebody else, I'm looking for it. I apologize for that. When I was talking about, it was Blake in the Delta that said something about me going off on the profanity used by Marjorie Taylor Greene in her interview with Megyn Kelly, but yet the Congress is refusing to release these sexual misconduct files. Look, I think both need to be addressed, honestly, so it's not an either or, just so you'll know. I just happened to highlight that and note that, but then we also talked about whatever the problem is, we don't know. But the members of Congress elected not to release that information. I personally think they should, in the interest of full transparency. I'm disgusted by it, honestly. And there's, who was the guy that had a staffer that ended up committing suicide, right, as a result of some abuse there?
Yeah, Gonzalez.
Gonzalez, yeah, exactly.
But she's now admitted to that affair.
Right, exactly.
After the primary on Tuesday.
So that's pathetic. It really is. After teaching in Mississippi for 3 years, my son left and went to Texas to teach. Reason, double the money. Yeah, I have a foster kid that's in the Texas public school system as well. I hear you, and does quite well as compared to here, no doubt. I have worked for the state for over 15 years and have a bachelor's degree. I don't make as much as a starting teacher. All state employees need a raise in pay. State employees haven't gotten raises approaching cost of living in a decade or more. I thought it would have been several years. So you see the concern, though, folks, not so much the concern, the challenge. We all want the government to spend less money. This costs a lot of money. You just heard us talking about it. $300 million when you look at a teacher pay raise. And if we also increase the pay of state employees, that's probably another $150 million. And folks would say, we need to cut expenses. Okay, where? Because you're kind of running out, especially when education is our number one spending item. We got Medicaid saying, if we don't get more money, we're not going to be able to satisfy our match requirement for the federal government, who sends us $7 billion. It's not like you can just say, forget it, federal government, we don't need that. Every hospital in the state would close if that happened. Every one. So that's not an option. We got a Department of Corrections, despite all the efforts by Commissioner Burl Cain, it's got lots of problems and challenges. The facilities themselves are deplorable. We're on the edge of being taken over by the feds. There's a myriad of problems that all cost money. And folks want things like teacher pay. I'm not saying they're wrong. And increase in non-teacher public sector pay. You want better roads and bridges. We all want that, right? We got buildings, many of which are in shambles and need to be renovated. I'm just making the point that kind of running out of expenses to cut, or a way to cut expenses that would offset this new amount of spending. I know the state auditor said a lot about that, but it's been the same list for like 7 years he's published. How many times are we going to buy $5,000 TVs? I don't know how much that happened. And I'm not saying that some of those things shouldn't be acted upon, but it's been the same list for a long time. I'm sort of feeling like a lot of that has been addressed. We're out of here today. Back with you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.